So I will just start off by letting you all introduce yourselves. We'll just go down the line, and you can all say who you are. And
how's it going? My name is Josh Pieters. I'm a South African-born British YouTuber. I create comedy videos on YouTube, and yeah, I'm here to talk to you about gaming in YouTube and influencers and all that kind of thing. Caspar?
Amazing. Hi, I'm Caspar. We've been friends since we were like 13 years old. We actually grew up in South Africa together. I'm co-founder of InfluencerUpdate.biz and Margravine Management, and I also have a YouTube channel where I do a bunch of different things.
Jodi, Sahlin, currently with Matchmade. Previous Space Ape Games, been in influencer marketing for about 10 years now. Known these cats for a little while, so yeah, the best way to describe lifestyle in gaming, right here.
Hey, I'm Sam Harry, creator on YouTube and Facebook under the name Chaotic.
all right, cool.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll start right at the beginning. Finding influencers. There's so many influencers out there now. It's not like it was 5 years ago where you kind of knew who the big people were. You know, you can come across people now, they'll have millions and millions of followers. You have no idea who they are, where they came from, what they're doing. So when it comes to putting campaigns together, what are the best practices for finding the right influencers? It's such a vague thing to think about, but...
You want to? Go for it. Yeah, that's really important. I think, obviously, you're aligning your brand, something you've built with a person who has real values and a real audience. So you've got to make sure you know who you're working with. There's a number of different platforms you can work with. Also, you can do the manual thing, but I don't recommend going on Instagram and sending loads of DMs. That's great when you're starting out, but as you want to scale, you should probably be working with a company that can help you do it. So yeah, you gotta know what the campaign is about. What's your ROI you want to get out of it, and who can help you with that. There are a number of options out there. I recommend influencer.com, but obviously there's other options too, which you guys are great. #ad. But yeah, it's a massive industry now, and there are tons of options.
Yeah, I think further to what Caspar was saying is. A really important thing, I think, to look at is the kind of audience that you're trying to reach out to. So if, for example, we were promoting a music concert in London tonight, we might not want to work with someone who has a huge audience with global reach all around the world, because therefore we would be wasting our money, because we don't need a reach to go all around the world. We might work with someone who has a small but focused audience in London, promote that music concert to that person's audience, and I think there, for what you're spending, you'd receive a far better return of investment. So you can use platforms like Influencer, or if you're working directly with influencers, ask them for their analytics and find out as much about their audience as possible, so that you can be as educated as possible when deciding who you want to work with and why.
I think it's super important to also make sure that you allow the influencers to choose your campaign as well, not always choosing the influencers, because you come to find that the messaging is way more authentic and organic if the influencer is involved with your content and feels the affinity for it. That's just as important as finding the influencer for your campaign.
Yeah. That's all we did.
Times 3.
All right, so just branching off from that, there's also a lot of things to consider when choosing a platform, because it's not just about choosing YouTube or Twitch or Instagram and finding influencers there. All of the platforms now have very, very different and specific demographics and main audiences. So what are the things you have to think about when deciding which platform to run advertisements on?
I guess it depends. For example, I think Twitter is a great place. If maybe we worked recently with BBC Earth on a Twitter campaign where, alongside watching the show live on the BBC, you have some creators who love the outdoors and their audience loves the outdoors, tweeting about it. So that would be a great place for something like that. I mean, Instagram can be an incredible place, especially with story for swipe ups. I'd say, apps and so on would be a great place. You could use Instagram, as you guys was talking about earlier. It can be a great platform for that. I'd like you to talk about Facebook, though, because you're the genius on Facebook. But also TikTok, there's a different kind of audience growing on there. I think a lot of people think it's just young people on TikTok, but the audience is so big now that it's all demographics too. But yeah, it completely depends on the brand and the product.
Definitely, yes. And of course, every platform has a different audience as well. For example, Facebook, of course, have a much more mature audience. A lot of people signed up in its early days. I feel like there are less younger people, whereas TikTok would be a place for that. I joined Facebook about 2 years ago, creating live content, and as I'm sure you guys have seen in the last 12 months or so, a huge amount of growth. Facebook is taking a huge market share. It's about 8.5% now, whereas last year it was only about 3%, taking a huge cut from Twitch directly in the live stream space.
Yeah, I was just about to say how Facebook has taken like 5% more of the market this year, which is, it doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a lot of growth for a platform. And Twitch is just a behemoth, so obviously it's going to have the biggest audience, but you have to start thinking about other platforms as well. So just leading on from that, what are the benefits for you personally, you're a streamer on Facebook, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, what are the benefits for picking Facebook, which has a much smaller percentage compared to Twitch and YouTube for you?
Facebook, of course, being the largest social platform out there with over 2 billion users, it was a different opportunity that was proposed to me to have a closer connection with Facebook and the audience as well. I feel like on Facebook you have that much closer interaction with your audience because of the real name, real identity, whereas on somewhere like Facebook, on YouTube or Twitch, of course, there are random names that are completely anonymous.
Yeah, there is an element of that. I think you're more likely to be more authentic and true to yourself if you're using your real name. You can't hide behind a weird alias or anything like that.
I feel like you get to understand and know your audience better than if it's just someone who uses some random name.
Yeah, absolutely. There is an audience of interaction.
You say that's trolling on Facebook because of that?
100%. It's one of the biggest things I would say is that I much prefer. It's a much nicer experience. And again, going back to that interaction, I've gotten to know my audience far better than the 7 years that I was creating content on YouTube.
Yeah, that is super interesting. I guess I never really thought about that. So I think a lot of people in the room are primarily marketing games or working on games. I think that would be the presumption at the mobile games event. So for like promoting games on non-gaming verticals, does that work? Is there a value in that? Yeah.
It sure does. I think when it comes to promoting games, especially pocket mobile games, those are games that your average person might just play. You don't necessarily have to be a gamer in order to enjoy a pocket mobile game. Therefore, someone who is an influencer or someone like myself who has an audience of people who might not necessarily be gamers, I think it would work to promote a game through me, for example, whereas you would define yourself as a gaming streamer, right? So a lot of your audience might be gamers or interested in gaming. Not to say that you couldn't promote a pocket mobile game just like I could, but you could also promote an actual game, a gamer's game, a hardcore game, like Dota. So yeah, I think it's important to realize that difference, that I probably couldn't create a gamer's game, and if you don't know what I mean by that, a game where you have to be specifically skilled or practiced in that game to play it. But a casual mobile game I definitely could, because it's relatable to my audience. Oh yeah, I need a sponsor for a video coming up, so if anyone talk to me afterwards. Thanks, Caspar.
I'm taking 10%. All right.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, the way you mentioned mobile games kind of being a little bit more casual than, finding someone who is super, super interested in a game. And I think with that, there comes the obvious question of authenticity and whether a creator actually cares about the casual game that they're promoting. So what kind of things do you have to think about to make sure that your content is coming across as authentic and that you actually care about this game that is being sold to a casual gaming audience?
So yeah, I think you can be really creative, and it doesn't necessarily have to be completely to do with the game. Obviously, you want to bring up certain themes and so on. But I think an example of this is if a gaming company, maybe you're a new mobile game, and say you're sponsoring, I don't know, the KSI versus Logan Paul fight or something like that, and then you can give a lifestyle YouTuber like Josh access to interview KSI for his channel, therefore giving his viewers an exciting interview and talking about the game. and it's all to do maybe, this is something you actually did, sorry, I'm taking an example of a campaign she actually did, I'm not making it up, it's brilliant. And it's kind of, it shows you, like, obviously Josh probably is going to do it for a smaller fee as a creator because he's getting access to a really good piece of content. His audience knows that he wants to work with KSI, and this company is facilitating that, so they appreciate the company for doing that. But I don't know if I went into too much detail. You know that better than I do.
Yeah, it's just important to have some real life content to kind of tie into their brand and then figure out how to tie into your actual end goal, being the game or, you know, in this case, the fight, back into the video. So it can't just be straight like gaming content on a lifestyle channel. That just doesn't make any obvious sense.
I think it's so important. You know, you do see massive drops in engagement when there's an advert within someone's feed, but that's not because, I don't believe that's because the platform is doing it. It's because the audience isn't interested in that piece of content because it's so different from everything they usually do. So it's so important. You can't, it's really difficult to just slap an advert and say, this is how you're going to do it, to tell every single creator to do it the same way. Because every creator has their, you know, their own way of communicating with their audience, their own style of content. So you really have to think about it more carefully and think, how can we sponsor this to allow them to make content that's even better? And sometimes you'll find that the sponsored content does even better than the normal content because they're getting a bigger budget. Like for Josh, you did something recently where you were able to use that budget to create a massive viral video. So it takes a little bit more time sometimes, but then you can get really good ROI.
Yeah, absolutely. So leading on from that, have you got something to say?
Sorry.
I didn't want to just butt in there.
I guess that answer that as well, in relevance to the question, is that the audience always know when something is correct or not. I guess they know their creator very well. So I feel like 9 times out of 10, they will see straight through whether they are speaking the truth or not.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So thinking about is there any big, massive do's and don'ts with promoting a game on a YouTube or Twitch channel or any platform?
Okay.
Please don't use a script ever. Like ever, please don't.
Oh,
thank you.
The creator, don't use a script. No, has Josh done that? No?
I don't think so. I think it's further to what Caspar was saying. If you're going to run an advert nowadays, especially, there's quite a sort of toxic view of influencers and influencers doing adverts, and it's become really transparent, and people don't respond too well with it. So if you are going to do an advert, try and allow the influencer to use the budget you're giving them or provide them with an opportunity to make something more special or more interesting than what they would normally do. So an example of something I did recently that Caspar mentioned is we took a lookalike of Ed Sheeran to the KSI versus Logan Paul boxing fight in Los Angeles and convinced everyone there that Ed Sheeran had attended the fight. Now, this video cost me a lot of money to make, and a brand sponsored the video, but without the brand, I probably wouldn't have been able to afford it. And I explained that in the video to my audience, and I said, thank you to this brand for helping make this possible. And then I think that advert was received in a far better way because people can appreciate that I'm taking money for the video, but I am putting it back into the content, and therefore that's seen as okay in the world. And it comes across a lot better, and that advert performed really well for the brand.
Yeah?
Okay, cool. Leading on from that, what is the best campaign that you've ever done, do you think, and what made it good?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess. I think whenever I worked with, when I get to work with like a film studio or someone like that, like Universal Studios, and they, you know, have access to really interesting people I can interview and do a video around. Like I had a friend called Grant Hines who was a massive Jurassic Park fan, and you know. Was this Universal? Do they own? Yeah, they do own. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you. And just double checking. And we were able to fly out, you know, Grant, and my audience was so excited because they knew about the story of Grant and his Jurassic Park stuff, and we got to meet the stars, and it was just really fun. So when they give you access to something that you can't get on your own, I think that always works out very, very well.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
I think the most exciting campaign I've done was play Battlefield 1 before the launch with Snoop Dogg.
Oh, So everything to do with celebrities.
It was good fun, and it wasn't even a paid campaign. Yeah. It was just enjoyable and an incredible experience that I will always remember.
I guess I kind of just spoke about the one that was really successful, but yeah, just I think further to the point that you have to now do something interesting is the best I could offer.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of companies providing access that you wouldn't be able to get on your own. That's a really interesting thing. Okay, just one more for Sam then, I suppose. What are the benefits of allocating more budget to Facebook, which is inherently a smaller platform than YouTube and Twitch? Should companies be looking to do that more now?
Definitely. Again, this is something that I've talked about before, that not many companies are looking into investing into ad space in streaming, whereas you should expect a higher conversion rate when it comes to people downloading or playing a certain game, because they can then interact and play with that streamer. For example, I guess, say Call of Duty, where you can play cross-platform nowadays, or Fortnite. If I'm streaming that and I tell my audience to download the game and come and play with me, I'm more likely to do that live as opposed to if it's just a regular video. Okay,
yeah, that's really cool. So something to be thinking about is that it's not just the big platforms that are where all the money should go now. There's rising platforms, there's different platforms, and it completely depends on what you're trying to do. Yeah. All right, that's all the stuff I have. Do we have any questions for the lovely folk up here? Okay. Our boy with the mic is on his way. Oh, did you need this mic? Okay, I was on, sorry.
Cheers. You guys must have played, or you have, racked up hours and hours and hours of gameplay of all sorts of games. I'm always interested in kind of people's passions for games, and everyone can say, what's the thing that you love? But I'm more interested in actually the thing that you hate. What's the game that you absolutely can't stand playing now? Well, you jumped at that. Look at you.
My least favorite thing is anything that's got a long loading screen. I hate playing GTA for that exact reason, because when you're streaming and you're just sitting in a loading screen waiting for the game to load up, your audience just disappear. They aren't interested in watching you sit there and wait. They want to see action. So anything with a long loading screen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of I don't make videos about gaming in particular, so I wanted to provide a kind of more of a lifestyle view on how to promote games. But I mean, personally, Age of Empires it's a time suck. I can't even see my girlfriend anymore because of how addicted I am to that game. So I have to say I hate Age of Empires. He's the same.
Cool. Any more? We could take.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
Hello.
So I would in general be very interested to advertise and spend budget with influencers. What I find very difficult is that you have channels that have developed for 1, 2, up to 10 years. You have certain sentiment, your audience developed, there's sort of inside information. And for me it's very hard to kind of sift through who would be a match for me. Any tips or advice you can give, or anything you specifically do to make that information available?
Yeah, I mean, so that's the kind of information a platform like my InfluencerUpdate.biz has. We're able to sift through and see, the personality traits of the creator and also what the audience enjoys and likes. So working with us would be able to help that. But if you're just trying to look yourself, I guess one thing I would recommend is don't try and just work with people you love their content and you're a fan of. A lot of times you see brands who just give tons of budgets to their favorite creators because they personally watch them. There's so much more stuff that you should be looking at than those kind of big metrics or the fact that you're a fan of them. So definitely use some sort of platform that can look at that for you.
Okay. Can I ask one follow-up question? Sorry. So for the creators, on an emotional level, how do you influence them? What part of their life do you feel you're influencing them?
I mean, as a creator, I don't call myself an influencer myself. I think I create content that people enjoy and people spend a lot of time watching. And so I think when your question is how does an influencer influence, Is it?
Yeah, looking at it from on an emotional level.
Yeah.
So what?
I mean, I guess you can make them aware of really interesting and good products and brands that they maybe didn't know before, and if it's something that they would be interested in, you're giving that a viewership, right? So that's just one way. But on an emotional level, yeah, there's definitely times where I'm watching my favorite influencer, Josh, and when he talked about that game during the fights, I just really wanted to get it.
Yeah, I think it's a tough question. I think if you could figure that out, you might dominate the world. I mean, that is advertising, trying to figure out what works for who you're trying to advertise to, and it's incredibly difficult. And you've got to just try and find the right influencer, I guess. But in any form of advertising, if you can get that right, you're going to do very well. So keep trying.
Cool. Any more questions? Okay.
Hi guys, thanks for the talk, all interesting. Blockchain gaming, does that ring the bell? You have any take on that? Do you see future in that? Influencers there?
What gaming?
Blockchain.
Blockchain.
Yeah.
I've been told not to talk
far?
about. My lawyer told me not to talk about blockchain. No, I'm joking.
Okay.
I'd love to hear more about it. I don't know too much about it personally. We'd love to. I'm going to look into it. Is that the next session? Oh, okay. Sorry. I've got voices in my head.
It's not, honestly, if there's no comment on blockchain, it's an awkward one, isn't it? I don't think any of us are particularly well acquainted, but there is some tracks that do cover blockchain in more detail than we can do that. Sorry about that. Anything else? We got any more? One question? Okay.
One interesting thing I thought you guys said was obviously that you got to do the Ed Sheeran video and you got to see Snoop Dogg and stuff like that, where you get to do these big, massive things. But do you ever have these awkward situations where you've got people come to you with like a budget that is good but not great, and you sort of have to sort of decide yes or no, and what sort of not sweetens the deal, but what makes you change your mind? Is it how they treat you?
100%. Obviously, it comes down to the campaign as well. I think every influencer is different, but it's not necessarily just the budget always. It can be sort of how the content will perform, what that might do in terms of knock-on effect, the relevancy, and that sort of thing as well. And yeah, definitely communication. Treat them like a person.
Yeah, I certainly think there's brands out there who you really want to work with and are aspirational, and you'll spend time trying to build a relationship with. Or if there's maybe a new company, I also work with a bunch of creators who are investing in startups, and it's called the Creative Investment Club. And we find companies that we're really interested in and we want to invest in, and therefore, if we ever did work with that company as a creator who's trying to promote it, we would probably charge a lot less because we want to see them succeed. So if you can build relationships, there's new ways to do that. You don't necessarily just have to do it through this transactional way that we're talking about.
Cool, okay. Tim's got a question.
Yeah. So for something like the Ed Sheeran campaign, how did that advertiser evaluate their ROI? Like, how did they determine that was worth whatever fairly large budget they probably gave you?
They actually came to me because they had seen some other videos that I'd done. And they said, look, we need reach on a campaign we're running, which was a competition where you could enter via their website and win a free GoPro. So we need a video that's going to get maximum reach. Do you have any ideas? We came up with an idea to fly to Los Angeles with a fake Ed Sheeran, try and trick the entire fight.
Were you able to measure how much traffic that actually generated?
I mean, I could estimate, but on that actual video, so the video has received now over 7.5 million views, and I think the competition that was running for... Yeah, the competition, so it ran for the first 3 days the video was live, and they got 40,000 entries, okay. Which is, 40,000 clicks onto their site, which was amazing, and it went really well, but that was quite literally just them saying, can you make a video that's going to do well and incorporate us into it? And I did a 20-second plug in the video saying thank you so much to this company for making this possible. Please click the link in the below to enter, and on we go with the video. But there's loads of different ways to incorporate.
But I think a key learning from that is like they gave him so much creative control, and now that video has gone on to get like 8 million views in a month or whatever. And they actually didn't even realize how well it was going to end up doing because they closed the competition a bit too early. Otherwise, it would be continuing to get all of these clicks. So it's really crazy to see what can happen when you give someone full creative control as well sometimes.
Cool. Anyone? No? Okay, cool. I hate to cut it off there, but I will cause absolute chaos for the next track if I don't round it up there. So thank you so much, guys, for joining me. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.